perspective today. Also, we're going to talk about universal laws. That's very important to understand. Good morning, Jay. We're going to talk about universal laws because when you observe universal laws, when you understand universal laws, these things are much easier to comprehend. Okay, perspective, how you look at things. So how do you see things? Well, your perspective is going to be determined by your core beliefs. That shapes your paradigm or the way you see the world. Now, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And the reason for this is there is always a good side and a bad side to something. Okay, so if you look at something, or let's say reframe, if you reframe something from the negative into the positive, now you have something working for you instead of working against you. So when you look at something, always choose the good side of it. You know, you may not see it at first. Sometimes it's a challenge. Sometimes we have to look at something for a while and pull our minds around, you know, like that. Perspective, okay? Because it's not always clearly apparent where the positive is. There's been so many times where, you know, my clients will give me instances like, okay, this happened. Now, what's the good part of that? Well, sometimes you don't know, because sometimes that event or that action or that instance affects something else over here, and you're not aware of it. At least not yet in the moment. But when you process something that's already finished, you take a look at, you know, the events that happened maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and then you go, okay, I see. That had to happen to push me over here on this side, and then this got me over there, that kind of thing. So it's very difficult to see these things in real time. It takes a lot more awareness. And when you can observe these things and see the synchronicities, then you can see how things tie together. When you see how things tie together and the synchronicities of it, then you go, oh yeah, okay, I get it. I see it. But if you're going to be emotionally involved, okay, and let's say it another way. They use the term emotional intelligence now. That's a new buzzword. Okay. But what they're really talking about is the observer versus the participant. If you become the observer, now you're not participating in it. Because it's very difficult to see things when you're in it. It's easy to see when it's past you or when you're observing it rather than engaging in it. Many people don't know that they energetically join things. They're unaware. You energetically join. Sometimes you do it through vision. Sometimes when you look at something, you energetically join. Everything is energy. Sometimes you join without being consciously aware of the fact that you have joined. So recently, you know, people have been telling me, well, we have we have a great amount of good versus evil thing going on, you know, and for the most part, there is always that balance. There is always good versus evil, light versus dark. There is always that dynamic going on. So it's important to choose the light if it's too dark. And maybe if it's, too much light, you get bored. But then you have that balance. And that's important. The balance is important because then life evens out a little bit more. So the first universal law is the law of divine oneness, which says that we're all connected. How are we connected? Energy. Energy, whatever you call this in here. You call this a spirit, you call this energy, you call this a soul. It's all of that. But that is a piece of the divine that you carry around in here. The kingdom is in here. It's not out there. So when you're trying to fix something, when you're trying to remedy something, when you're trying to soothe something, when you're trying to heal from something, don't look out here. Look in here, seek in here. The process is ask, believe, receive. Not necessarily that you're asking for something material. You could be asking for an answer. Hi, lady, good morning. You could be asking for a simple answer. What should I do about this? What should I do about that? Okay, close your eyes. Close your distractors. Okay, close. And then ask. Ask in here. The kingdom is in here. Jesus Christ told you himself, the kingdom is within. Krishna said it too, but he said it in a different way. Gautama Buddha said it in a different way. But they're all saying the same thing. So how do you affect something else? Well, if you're aware of your energy, if you're aware that energy affects energy, if you're aware of the law of divine oneness, it's very simple. Everything is connected. So what you do produces a chain reaction, so to speak. In other words, if someone is in a bad mood and you're kind to them, or you're generous to them, or you're loving to them, now they become in a good mood. Now, when they interact with the next person, do you think they're going to treat them kind, or you think they're going to treat them bad? Kinder, of course. And humans are conducive to their environment. So human beings will bond based upon their conditions. I know some very smart people who are in some very bad conditions. And because they're in that conditions, or those conditions, those surroundings, their environment, they cannot thrive. They're stuck. They don't see how they're stuck, but they're stuck. They're limited. It's like the goldfish in the bowl. But when they get out of their environment, now they can grow. Now they can expand. Now they can flourish. Now they can do better. Now they can do more. It all depends on where you are. This is why they tell you, show me 5 of your closest friends and I'll tell you who you are. If you're a very savvy observer, you can tell exactly how the person is by looking at what's around them. If they're disorganized in here, guess what? They're disorganized here. If they're organized in here, they're organized here in the physical world. Everything is a reflection. Everything is a mirror. Everything mirrors everything else. If you don't see it, you have the blinders on. The blinders don't look like this. The blinders look like this. But with greater awareness, the blinders come off. And then you can see. And when you see, you will know. And with knowledge comes responsibility. When you know, you become responsible to that knowledge. You will be held accountable to that knowledge. How is that? Well, the conscious, subconscious, and superconscious. God doesn't punish. God will never punish you, ever. You will punish you through your subconscious. God doesn't punish. God is love. God is love energy. And that energy permeates through all things. It's your decisions that punish. But when you're clear, when you have clarity, when you can make a decision from peace instead of a decision from anger, when you make a decision from love instead of a decision from fear, when you take your time to make the decision instead of rushing. When you're rushing, you're not being grateful. When you take your time, when you're patient, that decision that you make will be made in the best way, and the outcome will be good. It's guaranteed. It's guaranteed. But when you feel you have to respond, when you're responding to life, it changes your perspective, and now you think life is happening to you when it's actually unfolding for you. But when you respond and get in the habit of responding, what's responding? Your subconscious. Your subconscious has learned to respond. Now you switch the tables. You switch the end of the table. Now you're sitting on the other side of the table. Now you're responding to life. If you're responding to life like that, life cannot happen like this for you. Why? Because you've turned it around. And now instead of unfolding like this, because you're responding all the time out of habit from your subconscious, now life is happening to you. Life doesn't happen to you. It happens for you. But you have to allow. So how do you get to that point? Affirmations, meditation, vocalization, and visualization. How do you attract good things in your life? Well, first, you can write about it. Second, you can meditate on it. Third, you can speak it. And fourth, the fourth pillar, you can visualize it. The problem with most people is that they cannot see themselves there. They don't see it. When they're young, they are told certain things by people in certain places, usually in a place of admiration. Usually a well-meaning family member or boss or employer, that kind of thing. Or someone they look up to. In my book, chapter 5, I write about it. See, this looks like a book about singing. It's a book about vocalization, motivational self-development through the human voice. But in my book, in chapter 5, it's called, and I have to read the title for you because it's The Earth-Shattering Carelessness of Authority, chapter 5. Okay, we gave everybody a free copy yesterday. If you want a free copy, you can email me, junior@hereforyoulifecoaching.com, or you can message me on any of the 7 platforms that we're on right now. And I'll send you a PDF copy of this book free. Don't worry. But the earth-shattering carelessness of authority is when you hear something from someone that you look up to, you start to think about it. Okay? It could be good or bad. Okay? If somebody tells you you can, they're empowering you. If they say you can't, they're disempowering you. Watch what you tell your children because they look up to you. If you're a person in a position of authority, maybe a police officer, maybe a manager, maybe be careful what you speak. Because it goes into the person's subconscious. And when it goes into their subconscious, they think about it. And they think about it over and over. And guess what? It becomes a belief, because a belief is a thought you keep thinking. And then what happens? Thoughts become things. Somebody tells you you're lazy. You start thinking about it. Pretty soon, you start to believe it, and your subconscious goes, okay, I'm going to show you examples of lazy. Here, lazy. And it will give you all the instances. It will have you remember all the instances of you being lazy or you committing acts of laziness. And then you'll start to think about it and you'll go, oh yeah, that's right, I am lazy. Yeah, I guess I am lazy. And then you will believe you're lazy. Then what happens? You will become lazy because thoughts become things. Now, maybe the person in authority who said you were lazy, maybe they were having a bad day. Maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe they were just saying stuff. That's why the chapter of the book is called The Earth-Shattering Carelessness of Authority, because it's careless. Jesus Christ said it really good. He said, they know not what they do. In other words, they don't realize the severity of what they're pronouncing because they're unaware that words carry these vibrations, that words are powerful, that you can speak something into existence, like laziness. You see? Thank you, lady. You see? So, then one becomes lazy. Then the subconscious is just repeating. That's all. Can you change it? Of course. Is it easy? Of course. It's just as easy to install good habits as it is bad habits. Very easy. It's very easy to attract money. It's very easy to attract friends, to attract love, to attract anything you want, to attract bad things. Very easy. I see a lot of people that I know, and I point it out to them. Some are aware and some are not. When my clients get to the point where they start to take the blinders off, the blinders just start coming off. When they get to that point, sometimes it's not very good, it's not very comfortable. Because sometimes when the blinders come off, the truth hurts. Sometimes what we want and what is are two different things. Sometimes the truth does hurt. isn't it better to experience truth than to live in an illusion? And then when you circle back, you get to the realization that this is all an illusion. It's all illusionary. Why? Because it's perception. So you determine the outcome. You pronounce the outcome into your subconscious. Your subconscious is the quarterback that takes the ball and runs with it, and it will run it across the line for you. It will either run it across the positive line or it will run it across the negative line. Either way. The second universal law is the law of vibration. Everything in existence is in motion constantly. It's constantly evolving. It's constantly changing. But human beings love remaining the same because it's comfortable. With knowledge comes responsibility. Once you understand what it is, once you see it for what it is, you're responsible to that. You can't go back anymore. It's like scrolling. You know, when you use one of these and you're scrolling, you cannot unsee something. There was a time in my life where somebody said, well, you should watch this secret documentary by Rhonda Byrne. But I was happy. Money was coming in, everything was good, and I said, why would I want to add to my responsibility? Why would I need more knowledge to add to my responsibility? I was happy with my life. I was building my third company. Everything was good. And I was like, I didn't want any more knowledge. I didn't want to know anything. I was good where I was at. I did not want to evolve. And this was in 2008. And one day, I took the DVD out. I was handed it. It was handed to me in 2007. And I credit my ex-girlfriend with this whole evolution that took place in my life. And I dedicated my book to her. But because I knew that with knowledge comes responsibility, I didn't want any additional responsibility. So I took the DVD and I put it in my socks drawer, in the top drawer underneath my socks. A year later, in 2008, I'm looking through the drawer for something, and I see the thing, and I'm like, okay, let's watch this thing. Let's check it out. And everything that my uncle had taught me at 13, everything that he sat me down in endless amount of lectures for, everything, all of this knowledge was confirmed. Not only was it confirmed, there was about 40% new knowledge that I did not know. And I'm like, wow, this is interesting. This is interesting, right? So first of all, what it told me was, Uncle was right. The second thing it told me was, well, here's quantum physics. This is something that Uncle didn't know about. So quantum physics added another layer of responsibility. And then I was like, oh, okay. But because, and this is what clarity does. This is what awareness does. How do you achieve that level of awareness? Affirmations, meditation, vocalization, and visualization. It brings you to a higher state of awareness. then information comes in quickly. Information just like this, it just flows. Flow state. Flow state is where you instantaneously receive messages and you go, oh, I know what that is. You look at something, you go, oh, I know what that is. You look at something, oh yeah, I know what that is. And you fully comprehend it, you fully understand it instantaneously. Because why? Because of the first universal law, the law of divine oneness. Everything is connected. Thoughts, feelings, objects, living beings all have vibration. That's the law of vibration, the second law. And I never understood this until I started going to the shopping center and I didn't see my friends anymore. Same shopping center, always saw them at the same time. And then I go to the shopping center and I'm like, I must be living in a parallel reality because they're not here. I never see them anymore. It wasn't because they weren't there. It was because my vibration had changed and I was just in a different vibration. Every once in a while you see them. But it wasn't like before. It's different. When you change your environment, you become conducive to that environment. You become homogeneous to that environment. So when you make more money, right? When you make new friends, when you live in a new neighborhood, you start conforming to that. That's the law of vibration. Your vibration influences what you attract and how you interact with the world. So what are you attracting? Take a look. Take a look around you. What are you attracting? It's not about material things strictly. It's not. It's about everything. But take a look around and try to understand. Because when you see, you will know. Knowing happens like that. And it happens through observation. Very quickly. You don't have to be taught what something is. You can feel what something is through vibration. Vibration will explain it to you. Now, the law of correspondence, the third universal law, which says whatever is in here is out here in your life. So the question is, are you organized in here? You will be organized out here. The things around you will be organized because that's how you are in here. The law of correspondence makes it very easy to see what people are like from the outside because everything mirrors each other. Everything out here mirrors in here. The kingdom is within. The law of attraction is the fourth universal law, but it's probably the most talked about universal law because it became a brand. The brand is the secret. It's not a secret. It's been here forever. It's a universal law. Like attracts like. And you know this because you're with friends that enjoy the same thing. Like attracts like. People that have things in common. They will group together. They will bond. Why? Because they enjoy the same thing. Car people, right? Car clubs. I have many friends that are in car clubs. They enjoy cars. That's their thing. So they are like this. It works the same for everything. There's no judgment as to, good, bad, evil, not evil. If you're going to partake in evil, there will come a time that the evil will get so bad that it will push you to light. It will push you back into the light. Some people go back and forth. They go back and forth like this because they enjoy things in the dark. Okay, well, let's see how long you can stay there. And then they get pushed back into the light. And then they slip back into the dark, and then they get pushed into the light. Like attracts like all day long, 365 days a year, 24/7. The law of inspired action, okay, inspired action, not the law of action, inspired action, is the fifth universal law.